contract so that the Chinese company is going to have to come to New Orleans if we have any disputes. So they write in the contract that the Chinese company submits to the jurisdiction of the courts in New Orleans, and that this is where the cases are going to be. Now that you've been here for a while, you all know that that's not going to be a good provision because you can win that case and it's not going to help you. But even putting it in there can basically kill any chance, any slim chance you even have of suing the Chinese company in China. Because what happens is you have a contract saying you need to sue in the United States, so then you sue in the United States and you win because the Chinese company either doesn't show up or they do another trick, which is they hire, and I've seen this many times, they will hire a terrible lawyer who charges almost nothing, and that lawyer, oftentimes that lawyer's English is very poor, and that lawyer will do nothing but try to stall the case for years, and knowing that they're going to lose. And so then eventually the Chinese company loses, and then you say, well, I'm going to try and take this judgment to China to get it enforced, and then you learn that you can't do that, so then you figure, well, I'm going to sue this company in China because they've breached the contract, they've committed a tort, whatever. I can sue them in China, can I? And the answer would have been yes, but under these circumstances, the answer is probably no, because you had an agreement to sue them in the United States. So then when you go off to China and sue them there, the Chinese court is going to say, no, you can't sue here. You've already sued in the United States, and you won. So you can't sue this guy twice. Now, yes, you might have difficulty collecting, but the case has been decided. So you've cut out any possibility of suing. But let's suppose you don't have a contract. Let's suppose you now know that there's no point in suing them in the United States. So you decide, I'm going to sue in China. What happens next? What's China like? Well, China does have courts. China's courts do work, particularly in the bigger cities. In fact, in the bigger cities, they work pretty well. You hear about corruption in China. Obviously, there's some. But our experience has been that in the bigger courts, the bigger cities, it's really not that bad. Not only that, there's corruption and there's corruption, meaning that if your case is such a complete slam dunk, let's say you're suing someone for $2 million and your case is a complete slam dunk winner, any court that looks at it will know that you should win. The Chinese judges are going to, and I'm not talking just about China here, I'm talking about corruption in general, Russia, China, wherever, they're going to require a lot of money to give a favorable ruling for the Chinese or the Russian company, because they're going to have to face somebody higher up who's going to say, how could you have issued this ruling? And so they're not going to do it for, let's say, a $2 million case where you, the American company, should clearly win. They're not going to roll over for $5,000. They're going to want a lot of money, let's say $700,000. So you're now saying, well, so what? I mean, I'm still going to lose. Well, yes, but now you at least have some negotiating power. So if it's going to cost the Chinese company a $700,000 bribe to win the case, they'll settle with you for $800,000 or $900,000 because it's less risky, it's more certain, and they don't run the risk of going to jail. So it does matter, the strength of your case. If you end up in a Chinese court, the Chinese court is going to apply Chinese law. Under the rules, under the Chinese court rules, it may say that they're supposed to apply some foreign countries' rules and laws, but the reality is it all gets merged into Chinese law, it gets merged into Chinese thinking, and so you should think of it as you're going to be in a Chinese court and Chinese law is going to be applied. And they're certainly going to apply Chinese procedural law. And Chinese cases, they're document-based. The assumption is anybody who gets on the stand is just going to lie anyway unless they're a third party, and they're probably lying too. So they really, really look at the documents. So if you're going to be suing in China, look at your documents because that's going to be about 90% of your case. But once you get over there, things move really fast and they're really cheap because there's no discovery, lawyers are not terribly expensive, and we've brought lawsuits in China, and within 3 months we've had judgments. They've gone to trial and we've had judgments. Now, what also happens in China is that the courts there are very big on public policy, very big on fairness, and very big on a word that the Chinese government uses a lot, and that word is harmonization. They're big on harmony. And so what that means is that the courts there do not like big judgments. They do not like slapping a company with a big judgment for a mistake that the court views as having been made by employees. Now, this is an unfamiliar concept for we Americans where the employees are the company, but it's thought of differently over there, meaning that most businesses there are run by one, usually one, sometimes a few more very strong individuals, and the employees have almost no say. And a lot of times employees do things and they're viewed by the courts as being not legally, but in terms of harmony, they're viewed as being separate and distinct from the company. So if the drywall is viewed as some employees having put in bad materials to try to skim money from the suppliers or whatever, the Chinese courts are going to be reluctant to issue a big award against the Chinese company. And they're always reluctant to issue big awards because what we consider a big award is considered an astronomical award over there. And so I've talked with many Chinese lawyers about tort cases, and the general statements that I hear are that if you can get a $25,000 verdict, that's a huge verdict. And a $50,000 verdict would be a case where you've got somebody 25 years old with 3 kids, a wife, and a really good job, and that person dies, then you can get $50,000. And that's a lot of money over there. I mean, that's probably 15 years average salary. So if you're going to take your case over to China, be prepared that even if you win, you're not going to get it's unlikely that you'll get very much money. Another thing is that nobody settles over in China. Once the litigation, and I should have been a little clearer on that, once you sue someone in China, they almost never settle. And the reason is because they will hire a Chinese lawyer who doesn't cost much. There's almost no precedent in China. The legal system is very new, and so you might be suing someone who will make the most ridiculous claim because they think they have a possibility of winning, because the cases there are not that many published opinions yet in a lot of areas. In some areas there are, but also the cases are not based on precedent because it's a civil law system. And so once you sue someone, they don't tend to settle. However, before you actually bring the litigation, settlement is possible because being sued in China is viewed as a loss of face, because even whether they win or lose, just being sued, a lot of companies are worried that people will view that as they somehow did something wrong. So demand letters can be, in some circumstances, can be surprisingly effective. Now, on the subject of suing in China, there are some real issues that are particular to these drywall cases that I think make suing there even more problematic than the ordinary suit. One is, who are you? Meaning that who's going to sue this company in China? Is it going to be the homeowners? I just don't see the Chinese courts allowing homeowners in the United States to be suing a Chinese company because they don't really have the same concepts we do, same tort concepts, such that somebody who ended up with drywall in the United States would have a cause of action against the Chinese manufacturer. So I suspect that the only potential plaintiffs against Chinese companies in China are those who dealt with the Chinese company more directly. The second problem is the courts are probably going to find that the drywall is just fine. And I say that without having read a single scientific study on the drywall, having no clue about the quality of the drywall. But the reality is that in China there is a huge range of gradations of quality of products. So that if you can buy a t-shirt that you wash it once and it's ruined, but you have no cause of action because that just meant you bought a bad t-shirt. And if you wanted a t-shirt that didn't ruin after one wash, you should have paid more than 50 cents for it. And there's a story that's always told. I have no idea whether it's true or not, but whenever I tell it to people who deal with China a lot, they always agree that it should be true. I didn't make this up, someone told it to me. And it's a story where a American was leasing an apartment in China. And when you lease an apartment in China, most of the time they're fully furnished. And he had his chair in his office was broken, and it was a really nice chair. And so he kept asking the landlord, look, would you please fix this chair? And the landlord never fixed the chair, which is what happens in China. So it comes time to renew the lease, and the American says to the landlord, look, I'm not going to renew the lease unless you get me a new chair. And the landlord said, okay, I will get you a new chair. So the American signs the lease, and the landlord comes in with a $1 metal folding chair. And the American said, I don't know what I was thinking, I should have been clearer. The American should have been clearer. We've had cases where we had a company that came to us wanting to sue a Chinese manufacturer because its $3 million of Christmas tree lights were not going to be shipped until December 15th. We told the American company that we thought they had a lousy claim because they never specified in the contract that they never gave a date when the lights needed to be shipped. And the Chinese company would say, we didn't know. Another case we had was a computer bag company got computer bags from China and the handles broke virtually every time if you put any laptop in the bag. And so we talked with the Chinese company and they said, look, these people bought a $4 bag. How are we supposed to know they were going to put computers in the bag? If they had wanted a computer bag that could actually hold a computer without the handles breaking, they should have paid $6. And so if you're not absolutely specific in your contract with the Chinese manufacturer, the view is that you bought bottom-of-the-line product. And I'm guessing that's exactly what a lot of these manufacturers did. The day before, or yesterday actually, I was at my health club and I was running out. I was talking with actually an insurance broker I know there, and I was running out the door and a guy stopped me because he had overheard our conversation. And he said to me, he said, you know, I don't agree with you because the problem is everyone knows China has no quality control. And as I'm running out the door, I go, that's right. Everyone knows China has no quality control. So if an American company is bringing in bad product from China without really checking it out, then maybe we should be talking about liability for the American company. It's not all China's fault.
So I guess if they have no quality control, then the Germans probably would have had to impose some, huh?
The Germans, meaning the German,
I mean,
okay.
you know, in the Knopf situation,
right,
who has a very robust quality control program, I suspect then they would have known the same thing we know and would have either provided it or looked into it.
Well, I guess by a show of hands, how many people in this room before today thought China had good quality control? Nobody. Okay, so I think that's the answer. I think everybody knows, even some guy at my health club.
I know. So when the Germans put their name on it,